In this training, we are going to go ahead and start to talk about the benefits of following a program, balanced training, different types of strength training, and like what kind of types of things should you be having in your programming. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the benefits of following a program, yeah, you can go to the gym and you can go to a group fitness class. And I would say group fitness classes are fun. And also group fitness classes are highly recommended to keep to your follicular and your ovulation phase, but not so much during your luteal phase and your menstrual phase. But group fitness and like Orange Theory and just kind of going to the gym and winging it, like those things are great. They're going to help you get in shape, no doubt. However, it depends on your goals. It depends what your goals are. If your goals are to make some serious gains in the gym, to gain lean mass, to gain muscle mass, to gain strength, like that type of thing requires, structure and intentionality. Like, let's just say your goals are to improve your bench press and you want to hit over 120 on your bench press. Let's just say that's the example, but you're benching Monday one week and then not the following week and then 3 times the following week and then none and then one, and it's all over the place. And like it's just going to be so much harder to be seeing progress. So essentially, right on here, the benefits of following a program is muscle memory. If you are training a lift and you are learning, like you're not gonna, like, in order to be able to lift something heavier, that pattern, that movement has to be something your body can perform, right? If you want to deadlift heavier, you have to know how to deadlift. Like that has to be a pattern that your body trusts and a pattern that your body feels good in. As well as with muscle memory comes recruitment of muscles. When you are doing the same workouts because you're following a program, then, and obviously you don't have to follow the same program forever, but muscle memory is going to kick in and your body's going to be like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. Like we're good. Like we're relaxed, we're chill, we're good. Like we got this, we can lift heavier, right? So muscle memory, allowing your muscles to recruit easier and allowing yourself to start to pattern a specific lift so that you can go heavier and heavier and heavier. That also then includes progressive overload, right? Progressive overload is basically, and we're going to talk about it, but it's when there's a new stressor on the body and that new stressor causes your body to adapt, and then you've adapted, and then in order to adapt again, you need to have a different stressor on the body. Progressive overload is what allows you to go from a bicep curl with 5-pound weights to 10-pound weights to 15-pound weights to 20-pound weights to 25-pound weights, right? That's progressively overloading. But without a program, if you're bicep curling one week and then not the next and then the following, it's going to be very hard for your body to actually gain mass and gain size and gain structure and efficiency and fluidity and strength through that muscle group or that movement pattern unless you are structurally and intentionally progressively overloading it and going up in weights, and or there are many other variables where you can progressively overload, and we will be talking about those. It also allows you to track your progress. It allows you to see, okay, my deadlift has gone up by 20 pounds. Okay, my bench has gone up by 10 pounds. It allows you to see that. And then lastly is just like an intentional use of your time. If you walk into the gym, you don't know what you're doing, you're walking around, you're fluffing around, floofing around, whatever, it's not going to necessarily be the most intentional use of your time. So you will be able to see better gains, better strength gains, better muscle gains, muscle memory. You'll be able to lift heavier, be stronger, see your progress, and use your time intentionally if you are following a program. So next on here is balanced programming. So these are some things to think about when it comes to balanced programming. And when I say programming, I don't just mean strength training. Your strength training needs to be balanced, but across the board, you need to be balanced. I like to, let's just run through this actually. So the first thing on here is things that you need with things that you like. I don't necessarily think that movement should be 100% just things you like, because then you're going to stay comfortable and stay comfortable. I do think you should have things that you like incorporated so that you can, like what you're doing and show up with excitement and enthusiasm to your movement and stick with it and stay consistent and just keep with it. But I also think it needs to have the things that you need, and your body needs, if you are a female over the age of 30, your body needs weight bearing exercises, or you will lose bone density, you will lose muscle mass. So there are just some things that are non-negotiable elements of a program. So I always say to my clients, like, we're going to combine what you like with what you need, right? And I think that's great across the board because it's going to make sure you're having fun. It's going to make sure there's things in there that you enjoy. So it's things that you like with things that you need. And then things to include. This has weight wearing, it should say weight bearing, but you should be including some form of strength and or weight bearing exercise for exactly what I was talking about. After the age of 30 as a female, if you are not strength training or doing any form of weight bearing exercise, you will start to lose bone density and you will start to lose muscle mass. That can cause osteoporosis. In general, that will cause general weakness as you age. And I know you think like, oh, I'm 34, I'm strong, but like, you have to have some form of strength training and or weight bearing exercise. And in terms of frequency, I would say that you want at least at a minimum one strength training session a week. And that is at the very minimum. I would recommend one strength training session a week. Cardio can be any form of cardio, and we are definitely going to talk about that, but some form of cardiovascular strength training is blah, blah. Some form, sorry guys, some form of cardiovascular why am I calling it strength training? Some form of cardiovascular training, not strength training, to be, improving your body's ability to take and use oxygen efficiently for heart health, for lung health, for respiratory health, for circulatory health, right? So some form of cardio, mobility, flexibility, stability. These all kind of sound like the same thing, Jackie, are they? So mobility is typically known as like what mobile joints, like mobility, right? Your body's ability to take your joint through its full and natural range of motion. Mobility, right? Can you lift your hands up over your head? Can you spin your neck to the side? Can you externally rotate and internally rotate through the shoulder, through the hips? Can you have just good solid range of motion through the joints is going to be more mobility work. And especially you can use mobility to prime your lifts in order to access a greater range of motion. You can use mobility work to to prime your lifts, to just improve your range of motion. Flexibility is going to be more so through the muscle, being able to lengthen through the muscle. And then stability is going to be kind of like your motor control, right? Things like doing a single leg deadlift, etc. Stabilizing through stabilizers, right? And then regeneration. So making sure that maybe your mobility work is regenerative, maybe your flexibility and stability through yoga is regenerative, but you need to have some form of regenerative movement. So mobility, stretching, yoga, Pilates, bar, gentle walking, gentle cardio, but some form of regenerative movement to make sure that you're not in like perpetual push mode, which is going to leave you just feeling depleted and just leave you feeling depleted. You need to let your body recover and you need to give back to your body. This also includes things like foam rolling and massages, etc. The last thing I have on here, and in capital letters, is the word functionality. We are going to be getting into this, but a lot of times we think we're training for aesthetics, and great. There's nothing wrong with training for aesthetics. You can absolutely 100% train for aesthetics, but I don't think that you should train for aesthetics while leaving out functionality, right? Functionality of your body. Is your core functionally strong? And can you perform your body's expected movements and expected ranges of motion under load? If you fall off the sidewalk, can you catch yourself? Can you carry your groceries, right? Can you perform your body's functional movement patterns and have functional everyday strength for when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old? So this list here, and you're like, great, Jackie, what do you want me to do with this? Here's what I want you to do with this. I want you to have each of these elements as a part of your program. I know that maybe you think, oh, I need a workout program. It's just going to the gym 3 times a week. One day I'll go on the elliptical, one day I'll lift some weights, and one day I'll do a class. That's great, but you need to include, I would highly recommend, right? You don't need to do anything. It's your life, your choices, your decisions, your body, your health, your body. But I would highly recommend making sure that you are, number one, to recap here, including things that you need, aka this list, with the things that you like. If you love Zumba, go do Zumba. If you love power yoga, go do power yoga. If you love training for marathons, still train for marathons, but don't train for marathons in the extent that you don't do stability work, that you don't do strength training work, right? These things all go hand in hand, cohesively. So you should be including, and I would recommend including, some form of strength training and or weight bearing at a minimum of once a week, some form of cardiovascular training, again, at a minimum of once a week, mobility, probably, 2 times a week, flexibility 2 times a week, stability, maybe 1 or 2 times a week, regeneration, sky's the limit, as often as you need to. And I personally do probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 yoga classes a week. I go in the steam room, 4 or 5 times a week. I go for walks throughout the week. I do a lot of stretching. And again, keeping in mind that your programming is for functionality. It's to make sure that your body can move properly through its expected ranges of motion. With that being said, we're now going to go ahead and dive into strength training - weight bearing exercises. So there's actually 4 types of strength training. One of them is power, like power plyometrics, like box jumps, that kind of stuff. But for simplicity, right, assuming like we are here for functionality, we are going to be talking about 3 different types of strength training and their respective sets and reps, right? So we're going to break these down. We've got muscular endurance, we've got hypertrophy, and we've got maximal strength. So muscular endurance is kind of like how long under load can your muscles go? Like, think endurance training, but rather than cardiovascular or respiratory endurance, it's muscular endurance, right? So muscular endurance is typically going to be 3 to 5 sets of 2 to 6 reps. That is incorrect. Sorry, this should be like 3 to 4 sets of like 12 to 20 reps. That is absolutely and completely a error on my side of things. I must have copied and pasted the maximal strength once, twice. I was taking it from my notepad. But muscular endurance is typically like we'll call it 2 to 4 sets, 2 to 4 sets of, we'll call it 10 to 20 reps. It's typically for muscular endurance. Hypertrophy means that you're training to gain size of muscle, right? You want to gain size of your glutes. If you want to gain size in your glutes, you should be doing 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 12 reps. Don't be afraid to do 6 and 8 reps either. Like, you don't have to do 10, 12, 15 every time. Like, don't be afraid to do, 6, 7, 8 reps. So that's for hypertrophy, which would be gaining the size of strength. And maximal strength is like, you just want to lift heavy shit as heavy as possible. So this is going to be like your 1 rep max, your 5 rep max, right? This is 3 to 5 sets. So maybe like a 5 by 5, right? Lots of sets for 2 to 6 reps here. So again, in lieu of keeping balance, I would say functionally, we want to keep in mind muscular endurance. We want to keep in mind maximal strength and not being afraid to train in both reps and set schemes, especially if you are shooting for functionality. But again, I would dabble with everything, Next up, we've got types of cardio. Sky's the limit for cardio. There is everything, right? We've got aerobic and anaerobic, which means with the presence of oxygen and without the presence of oxygen. Basically, if you think anaerobic exercise, you're thinking like sprints. So this can include anything from steady state cardio, which might mean go on the Stairmaster for 12 minutes. This might also mean go run 12 miles. That's steady state. And intervals is going to be anything where you're fluctuating, right? This can be your HIIT. This can be your Tabata. This can be treadmill intervals. This can be any kind of interval where there's an on and there's an off ratio. So cardio, and for the sake of this training, we're probably not going to dive too much into it, but just remember that you can do steady state, you can do intervals. But again, for functionality, it's important to have a little bit of both, but definitely I would say at a very bare bones minimum, you want to be including 1 cardio session a week at a minimum. All right. Next up, we are going to be covering in the next training the 7 movement patterns. And going back to the concept of functional strength, like functionality, we want to make sure we are including all of these movements. And this can be thought of in a more simple sense rather than a back and bis, shoulders and tris, chest and bis, glutes and hamstrings, glutes and core, right? Some people train that way at a split routine, and that's usually if you're strength training more than 3 times a week. But if you are strength training less than 3 times a week, I would recommend just having a full bodied lift, which each of these 7 movement patterns: horizontal push pull, vertical push pull, knee dominant, hip dominant, and core. And in the next training, that's what we are going to dive into here for the 7 movement patterns. We're going to break all of these down so you feel confident to make sure that you are including all of these functional movement patterns in your lift.